Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc. We got a very interesting story or a show today. We're going to talk a little politics. We're going to talk a little criminal justice reform and who's really weak on crime. This show was brought together by the support of the producer, the director. She helped me get the issues so I can bring to my viewing audience. And that's none other than the chairman of United Peace Inc., my wife, Terry Marsh. And with the technical wherewithal to make it do what it do, none other than with the help of Brother Omari. So Brother Omari, without further ado, let's make it do what it do. To God be the glory. Come on with the first story. The state contest. Democratic Janulius in the driver's seat in the race for campaign cash in the hotly contested Secretary of State contest. Monday marked an Illinois State Board of Elections deadline to file a required quarterly report of contributions and expenditures. But a number of primary candidates had not yet filed their reports late Monday. Right here, right there. Democratic Secretary of State candidate Alexis Janulius. It's a picture of him speaking at the SEIU Local 73. In his bid to succeed retiring Illinois Secretary of State Jesse White, Most Honorable Jesse White, Democrat Alexis Janulius is holding his edge in raising campaign cash with more than 2.5 times as much money in the bank as the other 6 Democratic and Republican candidates combined. Janulius, a former state treasurer, reported $4,003,133 in his campaign fund at the end of last month, nearly 4 times as much as the $1,116,365 that his chief Democratic rival, Chicago City Clerk Anna M. Valencia, had on hand. Alderman David Moore, the 17th Ward Alderman, was in a distant third place with just $38,663 in the bank. And Democrat Sidney Moore, whose petition to run for the office had been challenged, had not reported raising any funds. Among the Republicans vying for this post, former U.S. Attorney for Central Illinois, John, I don't want to mess his name up, so I'm just going to say John C. He had $273,620 in his account. And State Rep Dan Brady of Bloomington had $242,598. And that is key to me and everyone else that's watching the race, especially in the African American community. And the question is, with all the money that they have to run, this is the question that everyone in the African American community brings to me, because they know I'm a political consultant. And they say to Gator, they say Gator. We see all the commercials. And then the people are wondering, why aren't they buying some commercial time on the various African American cable shows? And all I can tell them, I'm going to make mention to all the clients that I have that this is something that they need to do. And everybody that's running, Republican, Democrat, I don't care, from the president to the governors to the county board president to the mayor. It ain't that many African American medias where you can't take some of that expenditure when you're doing advertising on TV, in print, or on the radio. We're going to get to this next note. Bring that up right there. Thank you, Brother Omari.
I'm Alexi Janulius. I was inspired to enter public service by my friend and basketball buddy, this president.
Hi, Dina and Pat. This happened back in September, but reckless homicide charges were just filed against the driver. Police say she was on her cell phone at the time of the deadly accident. 4-year-old Violet Singleton was playing in the playground near Whittier School in Harvey when police say the driver swallowed.
No, you're going too fast, Brother Omari. You should have played that whole piece. Yeah. Hit let that play all the way out.
I'm Alexi Janulius. I was inspired to enter public service by my friend and basketball buddy, this president. But after this president tried to overturn the last election, we have to make it easier to register and vote. When I played pro ball, we practiced to make the game easier. When I'm Secretary of State, I'll do the same. We'll never let anyone stop you from casting your vote.
Troubling details in a new Target 3 investigation. Tonight, one of the Democrats running to replace Jesse White now facing accusations for fostering a, quote, culture of corruption.
Chicago City Clerk Ann Valencia hit the campaign trail in Peoria today. If she wins, she'd oversee the office that enforces transparency laws for lobbyists. Our Capitol Bureau Chief Mark Maxwell joins us live in Springfield.
Mac, Raymond Cosme is a lobbyist who specializes in public-private partnerships. That term might be a description for his marriage to Anna Valencia. She holds public office. He courts private companies, and together they lobby government officials to benefit his clients. That's according to emails, text messages, contracts, and government documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act.
My husband and I have separate careers, and I'm very supportive of his.
Chicago City Clerk Anna Valencia hired an attorney to sift through and slowly release emails she sent from her personal account conducting official business.
I am fully transparent, open. I've released hundreds of emails. We'll continue to do so. I've released all my personal texts and emails, and we'll continue to do so.
We asked her in January, why not release them all?
Look, this is a fishing expedition. They're just trying to fish for something. These emails pretty much are a lot about scheduling with my husband, who's making dinner.
Those emails, text messages, and contracts we obtained show she spent much of her time in office focused on projects that her husband was also working on as a lobbyist and consultant.
As city clerk of Chicago, I created the very first municipal ID card.
On the campaign trail, now running for Secretary of State, Valencia promises to expand a program she brought to the city of Chicago.
We need to make sure we have an expert and someone that's already done these processes managing this money.
She's promoting a smart government ID card that, among other things, offers discounts for voters.
The city key started for access to identification. So it is not only a government ID, but it's also a library card, a CTA transit card, a prescription discount card, and a business discount card.
MasterCard runs a similar City Key program, and MasterCard partners with Valencia's husband at Ignite Cities, where he's the managing director. While Valencia was in office, her husband's business partner, George Burciaga, lobbied to expand smart IDs to the city of New Orleans. Competitors there accused his company of rigging contracts. The city dismissed that complaint, but emails show Burciaga and MasterCard were involved in talks about setting up a city key program there.
I first want to thank the mayor of Chicago.
Other emails show Valencia lobbied Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, asking her to review an investment plan she and the head of the Illinois Medical District put together. Contracts we obtained show her husband signed a deal to profit on that plan, and his company was partnering with advertisers to sell space on digital kiosks. The medical district would get part of that revenue, and his firm would get the rest.
I've always shown up to make sure that our communities have opportunity, especially economic opportunity and mobility, because they've been disinvested for years. And so that's something I'm going to continue to do.
Hundreds of pages of emails and text messages show other troubling instances where Valencia's office advised her, don't use your official government logo. She insisted we do want to use it. Or in other cases, they would discuss these development projects or give simply a publicity boost to her husband's clients. Once we started asking questions, Valencia's husband updated his lobbyist registration to disclose he sits on a state board and the Illinois Medical District told us they are no longer pursuing installing those digital kiosks that were outlined in that contract. He's now, by the way, pitching a similar ad revenue sharing deal to the Chicago Park District. Reporting in Springfield, Mark Maxwell, WCIA3, your local news leader.
All right, Mark, thank you so much.
A developing story now, new fallout in the ongoing controversy over Secretary of State candidate Anna Valencia and her husband's work as a lobbyist. Political reporter Marianne Ahern joins us now with the update. Marianne?
Kate, questions have developed over how City Clerk Anna Valencia promoted her husband Riyad Kazmi's work in securing contracts in Chicago and other cities.
According to the best of my...
The intersection between City Clerk Anna Valencia and her husband Riyad Kazmi's businesses reveals how Valencia played a role as her husband's business partner expanded their work in New Orleans. Their company won the multi-million-dollar New Orleans deal for a smart cities project. Competitors accused them of rigging it. New Orleans officials denied that was true. However, just yesterday, the New Orleans City Council president sent subpoenas demanding documents, including all communication between Valencia, her husband, and his partner about the contract. In a statement, Valencia's campaign manager denies Valencia made any introductions and says, quote, New Orleans officials reached out to her to find out more about the Chicago City Key program. Valencia faces two Democratic opponents, Alexi Janulius and Alderman David Moore.
To use the city letterhead to help elevate it, that's an ethical problem. And character and integrity is when people are not watching.
Here in Chicago, there are also emails and text messages that show Valencia was involved in promoting a similar smart city development that her husband secured a contract for in the Illinois Medical District. Her husband's company might have profited up to $15 million in advertising revenue, according to published reports, but the medical district deal was recently canceled. Valencia is also promising the, quote, my husband will not conduct any business for clients before the state of Illinois if she becomes the next Secretary of State. 2 years ago, Kazmi lobbied the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State office. He currently lobbies 11 different state agencies.
As Secretary of State, we deal with ethics and we deal with lobbyists. And so to have the highest ethical standard that we have to have as the Secretary of State, you have to show it now.
And whomever is the next Secretary of State will oversee those lobbyists and their registration. Marianne Ahern, NBC5 News.
There has to be democratic unity across the board in all the states in America, and especially in the state of Illinois. And I say that democratic unity in the name of anti-voter suppression. Here in Illinois, we have where the Republican Party and its financee or financer is the same individual that financed the former governor before J.B. Pritzker was elected to be our governor. And that's Ronner. And we know what has become known as the Ronner curse on Illinois, which was he didn't have a budget for 2 years. And the people of Illinois, to help eradicate that curse, elected J.B. Pritzker governor. I know I was instrumental in helping him get elected. Now they have this guy that they're pushing, Mr. Irvin, a Democrat that flipped Republican. And he comes on the air and he says he's the nightmare. When people see him for what he is, they see his people that's behind him, that's moving him like a puppet, are the same individuals, from those that's getting the money for him and those that's managing his campaign, as being the same individuals that were behind Ronner. And when you close your eyes and you hear him speak, you see Ronner. And when you open your eyes, you see a black face. Close your eyes, you see Ronner. Same policies, the same thing. And then when he said he's the nightmare, we can't afford a nightmare, which would be a Republican getting elected to become governor of the state of Illinois. Then the Democratic primary, in reference to the election of the Secretary of State, Illinois Secretary of State race, because the great Secretary of State, Jesse White, made a decision not to run again. There was 3 candidates that was in the race. That's 17th Ward, David Moore, former treasurer, Illinois treasurer, Alexi Janulius, and city clerk, Ann Valencia. Hope I'm pronouncing her name correct. The Cook County Democratic Party made a decision to endorse Alexi Janulius. They also made a decision to endorse J.B. Pritzker. The Democratic parties across the state are the ones that vet the various candidates that's running for the various offices. We just talked about 2, the governor's office and the Secretary of State. In the media that you have seen is where the city clerk and her husband has been found to be doing some unethical, possibly illegal activity. And it's not just here, it's in New Orleans, and the news media has brought it out. And I'm gonna let you see what I'm talking about on that. But her actions and their activities can bring down, in my opinion, in my belief, the Democratic Party into a rabbit hole that's so deep that it would be hard for them to get out of it, and the Republicans will be able to elect a Republican governor and Republican Secretary of State. And I say that because she was endorsed by some very honorable elected officials, in my opinion, in my belief. That U.S. Senator Durbin, the same one that was the chairman of the Senate, U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, that was one of the powers that helped get us the first black woman on the Supreme Court, Ms. Jackson, Justice Jackson. The Secretary of State's endorsement, Jesse White's endorsement, and that's powerful and that's meaningful. And she's running for the Secretary of State's office. And the wrong that she was doing as the clerk of the city, she said she's gonna bring them same programs to the Secretary of State's office. Then we find out what she's doing is very nefarious, unethical, and could be possibly illegal. And she has the governor's endorsement. And I'm saying this, that's why I say the Democratic Party got to stop the bleeding, because she brought this on herself. Has to stop the bleeding, unite behind the slated candidates for the office of governor and the office of the Secretary of State, so that we don't have another nightmare, and that is a Republican becoming the Secretary of State of Illinois. And I'm saying this, I am of the opinion and belief that they were not aware of what Anna Valencia was doing and her husband were doing when they endorsed her. And it's as if they were hoodwinked. And they have a right to say behind what they just found out. Because now the whole state of Illinois know, the city of New Orleans know, and I'm sure the state of Louisiana knows. They have a justifiable right to say, hey, look, we're not saying you're guilty of doing anything wrong, but what's being shown publicly and what's being said out of her mouth, they have a right to no longer endorse Anna to become the next Secretary of State, nor should she receive their support to be the next Secretary of State because of the wrong that she and her husband is beyond allegedly have done. They got documented facts. And with that, I want to say, that's why we can't let this blue state turn blue, because if it do, what's happening in the other 19 states that has either a Republican governor or Republican legislative body, they believe in voter suppression, and because they are a part of the Trump Republican Party, they trying to eradicate democracy. So it's time to show this off come back united, purposely focused on making sure we don't have two nightmares in Illinois. Because I guarantee you, if the Republicans get elected governor, get elected Secretary of State, we're going to have the resurrection of the Ronner's curse on Illinois. And with that, I'm going to say to God be the glory. Get registered, get motivated, get educated, and come out and vote June 28th, 2022, or make sure that you vote blue all the way through 2022.
I'm Richard Irvin. When I ran for mayor, Mike Madigan campaigned against me. I beat him. Now Governor Pritzker's afraid that I'll beat him too. There's nothing the left fears more than Republicans who look like me and think like us. That all lives matter. That cops should be defended, not defunded. That handouts keep people down. But maybe that's what liberal politicians want. I'm Richard Irvin, and I'm their worst nightmare.
You know, I want to thank my listening audience, my viewing audience, for allowing me to share that infomercial with you. I got about 2 or 3 minutes. I want to bring up the thing about Van Dyke. The Department of Justice made the decision not to charge him for violating Laquan McDonald. Play that right there. Thanks, Mark.
Getting a new pet isn't easy.
He didn't, there you go.
Since Van Dyke was convicted in state court of second-degree murder and 16 counts of aggravated battery in 2018.
Former Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke was the first Chicago officer convicted in an on-duty shooting in Chicago in more than 50 years. In 2014, he shot and killed 18-year-old Laquan McDonald. The teenager was walking down the street with a knife, ignoring officers' commands to stop, when Van Dyke shot the teen 16 times. The shooting, captured on dash camera video, ignited days of protests after it was finally released about a year after the shooting. Van Dyke was sentenced to nearly 7 years in prison, but only served a little more than 3, with credit for good behavior. He was released this past February. That afternoon, protesters were in front of the Dirksen Federal Courthouse demanding federal charges.
There's just no way that this Justice Department can allow this to fall on deaf ears. They must hear the cry of the family and the community, justice for Laquan McDonald.
Ron Safer, a Chicago-based attorney who was part of a team that prosecuted 3 Chicago officers accused but acquitted of trying to cover up the McDonald shooting, told WGN's Morning News shortly after Van Dyke's release there was little chance the feds would bring charges.
The process was fair. We weren't satisfied with the result. If we were to start to re-prosecute people for crimes like that, that's a dangerous precedent.
Detailing the decision not to bring federal charges, U.S. Attorney John Lausch says they would have had to overcome a high burden to get a conviction, saying they would need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt Van Dyke deprived McDonald of a constitutional right, and that Van Dyke's actions weren't the result of a mistake, fear, negligence, or bad judgment. The U.S. Attorney's Office says it made the decision after consulting with McDonald's family. But after Van Dyke was released earlier this year, the family was torn between fighting for federal charges or for more police reform.
The time of the citizenry would be more well spent in changing the laws in which the police are governed by, as opposed to trying to go after one officer and extend his prison time.
The family not seeking federal charges, just the family is seeking federal charges.
Now, after the shooting, the Department of Justice investigated the Chicago Police Department and issued a consent decree ordering hundreds of reforms. The department is still working on achieving many of those reforms. We're live in the newsroom. I'm Eric Rump, WGN News.
No,
challenge yourself to the career you want.
They wouldn't charge him. But the 3 officers that was responsible responsible or standing there when George Floyd got murdered by the police officer. He got found guilty in one courtroom, state court. They come back, they charge them with violating his his civil rights. He pleaded guilty. The other 3 officers that were standing by that didn't stop him, they got found guilty for violating George Floyd's civil rights. So I find it perplexing that they say now, and anytime I see safer anywhere around anything, I know it ain't gonna be right, talking about Ronald Safer. For them to say that the Justice Department didn't have what was needed to verify that this man's, Laquan McDonald's civil rights was violated, the man was shot 16 times. And then, I'm gonna say this, and I'm beat through. The guy that was jogging in Georgia, when the 3 men accosted him and they murdered him, I believe his name was Asbury, they found them 3 individuals guilty of murder in a state case. Then the Department of Justice came back and filed a hate crime and saying that they violated his civil rights and they got found guilty. So something is wrong when they say they can't charge Van Dyke with violating Laquan McDonald's civil rights. And when I hear all the senators, especially state senators, Republican and Democrats, here in the city of Chicago, being silent when the Prisoner Review Board freed 2 guys, and I'm not justifying the crime that they did. 2 police officers, or 3 police officers got killed. But everybody said that the Prisoner Review Board was soft on crime. But they were silent when this is happening with Van Dyke being freed, a police officer that murdered that man. Videotape showed all that. Dick Durbin, Duckworth, Jesse Jackson, NAACP, community leaders, church leaders, some elected officials demanded that the Department of Justice charge this man with violating Laquan McDonald's rights. I want to say this. Father God, I pray that Van Dyke, because I know vengeance is yours, that Van Dyke get prosecuted for violating Laquan McDonald's civil rights, and that he be charged with a hate crime. Because a man had to be full of hate to shoot a black child like he did 16 times. They said he almost had to reload his gun. And I'm not into what the family feel, but I'm of the opinion that the grandmother was right in saying that her grandchild, Laquan McDonald's civil rights was violated. And with that, I want to say to God be the glory. That's my story.